Assemblymember Chu's got item 18, the last item. It's AB 1236, and we'll invite him to come forward. And thank you so much for your waiting. Can we have quiet and order in the House, please? Assemblymember, you have the floor, and we'd like everybody to be quiet and conduct your discussions outside the chambers. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senators. Good afternoon. First, let me start by saying I'd like to accept all of the amendments identified in the analysis, which are designed to address the concerns raised by local government, and I want to thank the committee chair and staff for your good work. AB 1236 will expand our state's electric vehicle infrastructure and bring down the cost of EVs, which we all know we need to do to reduce auto emissions. According to our State Air Resource Board, over 90% of Californians breathe unhealthy levels of one or more air pollutants, much of which, I think there's some agreement on that, much of which comes from cars and trucks on our roads and highways. And this is why California has an aggressive goal to go from 100,000 electric vehicles today to 1.5 million zero-emission vehicles over the next 10 years by 2025. The California Energy Commission has estimated our state will need almost 200,000 charging stations to meet our goal. Unfortunately, a major impediment to more EV charging stations has been the lack of certainty and uniformity in the local patchwork of hundreds of regulations for EV charging stations. Requirements and the amount of time to obtain a permit has differed dramatically from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, even though the same EV charging station is typically being installed in the same kind of commercial building or single-family home, and it's typically akin to putting a dryer in your garage. By establishing a streamlined permitting process for EV charging stations, this bill will lower the cost of the installation of EV charging stations, streamline permitting, and expand the infrastructure needed to improve air quality and health impacts along our streets and freeways. This is a bill supported by environmental groups, including the Sierra Club, NRDC, and the League of Conservation Voters, the California Apartment Association, the tech industry, as well as the EV industry. And with that, I ask for your aye vote and turn it over to witnesses.
Speakers in favor, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mark Aprea on behalf of ChargePoint in support of the measure. This measure was, in part, a product of a debate last year on a measure that Mr. Dunn's client and mine were initially at odds, which was oftentimes commercial property owners would want to see the installation of electric vehicle charging station, but found the impediments in terms of getting those permits approved so onerous that it became quite difficult. As a result of that discussion, we recognized that there was a need to find some way of streamlining the permitting process for electric vehicle charging stations so that we can meet the environmental goals that were established and presented to you by Assemblymember Chu. So in that regard, these the EV charging streamlining, if you would, relates to really the installation of what is the author mentioned, simply allowing for local agencies to streamline their permitting, to allow large cities to go first, to develop the work, and to allow smaller cities following to be able to benefit from that. And for that reason, we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, thank you. Other speakers, favor, please. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, honorable members, my name is Abdallah Sharkawi, and I represent Volta, a Californian company which is partnering with commercial and municipal site owners to deploy subsidy-free EV charging amenities in California. California is leading the way in EV adoptions with more than 40% of 350,000 EVs sold in North America. But EV charging infrastructure remains scarce in many locations due to the cost of installations and due to the time-consuming and undefined processes for permitting and inspection, as Mark mentioned. At Volta, we have deployed hundreds of sites, most of which in California, and we have seen the good and the bad. In some cases, the permitting application and the inspection scheduling are done online or over the counter right away. And in some cases, undefined or cumbersome processes take several months, and sometimes site owners very willing to deploy EV charging choose to actually walk away. In the majority of cases, the delays are simply the result of unfamiliarity with what EV charging is. Mark mentioned we are talking about an electrical appliance that draws power as much as a clothes dryer. AB 1236 will greatly help cities by providing the direction and the framework to put in place an EV charging permit application and inspection process following actually the lead and directions and examples that already exist in many cases, in many jurisdictions, both large and small across California. So with this, I respectfully ask your aye votes, which will help drive more rapid EV adoption and contribute to a better air quality in the shorter term across California.
Thank you. Thank you. Other speakers, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keith Dunn on behalf of the California Apartment Association. And Mr. Perea is correct. The Apartment Association has been working with the sponsors of this bill. We do support the goals of this institution, the leaders of our state, to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We feel that a consistent, predictable permitting process will help that installation. We're supportive of the bill and ask for your aye vote.
Other speakers in favor, please come forward.
Chris Rosa on behalf of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group in support of the bill.
Thank you. Thank you. Other speakers, please come forward.
Pete Montgomery on behalf of NRG Energy in strong support.
Okay.
Jamie Price, TechNet in support.
Okay.
Speaker, I got Pacific Gas and Electric in support.
Okay.
Claire Desser on behalf of CalSTART in support.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Other speakers in support. Can we have opposition speakers please come forward and welcome. Come on, you can have a seat. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members. Jason Ryan, Lead California Cities. We have an opposed unless amended position on the bill. We greatly support the author's willingness to take the amendments that are outlined in the analysis. We think that they do go, a good distance to meet some of our concerns. I think there are still a couple of provisions that we would like to see amended, but we appreciate his efforts. I'm hopeful that we can get there, but right now we still are opposed unless amended. And we'd like to work, but not sure if we're going to get there.
Thank you.
Can I just ask to clarify what?
Yeah, so if you look at our support unless amended, or I should say our opposed unless amended letter, there are really four key elements. One of the elements is the desire for us to have an ordinance. We feel that there's really no need for us to have to go through an ordinance process to develop a streamlined and expedited process. Really, this is just going to cost more money and slow the process down. We can develop the checklist, we can have the streamlining without having a public hearing, without having to develop that ordinance. So that's one of them. The other one is just really the basic idea that we need to treat one class of permittees better than everybody else. That's something that we're struggling with. Hopefully, we can get there, but it's something that we really don't think that it's necessary. On the funding side of things as well, the bill doesn't contain a cap on the amount of money that we can charge for the permit. Clearly, Prop 26 says that we can only charge what it actually costs us to perform the function. So in our small jurisdictions that may have very, very few requests, that permit's going to could be quite expensive. But in those jurisdictions that have many, many requests, the permit's going to be quite low. So there are issues there. And then also, and my other colleagues will probably touch on this a little bit more, but, we're going to need to see the language as far as, who we get to deem gets to be expedited as far as, is it solar? Is it going to be the EV chargers? Is it going to be commercial? Is it going to be residential? I mean, we agree with the supporters of the bill that if you're going to do a level 1 charger, which is essentially a plug-in dryer, that, yeah, it's an easy installation. But if you're going to do a level 2 or a level 3 chargers, these draw a tremendous amount of power and have different requirements, and it's going to be a much more difficult installation. So those are just some of the lingering concerns. But again, I'm hopeful that we can get there. The author has been very gracious in working with us and meeting with us, and we definitely appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Gil Topidi, and I represent the California Municipal Utilities Association. I, too, wish to thank the author and his staff and your staff on laying out some amendments that we think go a very, very long way in addressing CMUA concerns, but we share some of the issues raised by the League of Cities. You'll be hearing momentarily from a colleague organization of ours, the Northern California Power Agency, with some issues specific to some of my members that want to make sure that in this directive for cities to follow, that there be some flexibility and clarity for utility directors to kind of assess and lay out some rules and parameters on making sure that we don't overburden our electric grid with too many level 2 or level 3 chargers in one spot. I look forward to bringing this back to my committee members for changing a position, hopefully going neutral, hopefully following the league with a neutral position very soon.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members, David Jones on behalf of 3 clients, the Marin cities, City of Burbank and San Marcos. Burbank has water and power. They're very concerned about a level 3. Our first 2 Tesla garage plug-in. That's the equivalent of 3 houses on 1 lot. So that is of a concern if you're trying to provide power, and we'd like to have continued consideration of those impacts for water and power providers, as well as the comments made by the league. Appreciate the author moving the bill in the right direction, but we haven't had a chance to vet this with some of our clients, and we'll have to have them take a look at the amendments to see where they are, but we still remain opposed at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mario DiBernardo with the Northern California Power Agency. We are made up of 15 local publicly owned utilities, including City of Ukiah and Healdsburg, City of Santa Clara, City of Lodi, have great representation on this committee. We support moving forward with electric vehicles. There are provisions in SB 350 that we support to help pave the way for utilities to promote electric vehicles. We view it as an important aspect of meeting the state's climate goals. We have specific concerns with a streamlined permitting process that would give a customer or a ratepayer or a resident of yours a streamlined permit that would create then issues with the grid or their local publicly owned utility. A lot of the rhetoric with this, but first of all, I want to thank the author for accepting a lot of the amendments that the committee analysis suggests. We've worked with them on that, and they've been very open, and we appreciate that. A lot of the rhetoric has been regarding these level 1 and level 2 chargers, that a level 2 charger takes as much energy as a hot tub, for example, but there are higher level chargers. There are fast chargers which can charge an electric vehicle in 15 minutes, which is great, but that could create serious challenges for the grid and the utility. And so what we want to make sure is that the utility director for these publicly owned utilities is properly involved to ensure that there aren't any unintended consequences with the grid as a result of this streamlined permitting process, and gives the customer, the owner of that charger, the confidence that their permit will actually give them a charger that will work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers opposed or have concerns? Anybody else? Okay. Questions from committee? We have a motion. Senator Allen.
I guess I just, I hear the concerns that have been raised. I also hear that there's been good work done. I very much support the fact, I think this is all about trying to create more of an infrastructure for, a direction that we so know that we need to go in with regards to electric vehicles and providing the infrastructure to allow for that growth. And that's part of so much of the legislation we're passing right now. So I'm sensing, kind of a shared set of interests, but a set of very particular concerns: installation costs, costs of permitting. I get those. That's part of the process. For better, for worse. I do think there's a need for an ordinance. I think that's how these things are going to happen, is getting rules in place to allow for the growth of these stations. I do keep hearing this issue, though, about an overburdening of the charging system, the infrastructural challenge. Can we just hear? I'd just like to hear a little bit more about that particular issue, and how it can be resolved from you, Assembly Member. We just want to make sure that it's going to work well, it's going to be implemented well, and in a way that's not going to all of a sudden mess up the entire power grid.
Absolutely. And first of all, let me thank all the stakeholders who've been engaged in this conversation. This bill did come out of the Assembly without a single no vote. A number of these issues were raised in recent weeks, and my staff, we've been happy to sit down and work through these issues. I do think a number of the amendments that we have accepted really address this. And let me make it clear that our ordinance states that if there are any health or safety concerns, and in my mind that would include any risk with regard to the electrical grid, if there were a significant power draw on it, that is something that can be addressed by every local jurisdiction. But that being said, literally about an hour ago, this specific issue around the electrical grid was raised very specifically to me, and I'm open to working on language to say that if there is a risk, specifically with regards to utilities and grids that would create a danger, that is, of course, the last thing any of us would want. So I'm willing to work on language to address that. I do also, though, want to say with regards to some of the other issues that have been raised, the suggestion that somehow this is an unfunded mandate, this bill, unlike a previous bill that it's modeled after, allows cities and counties to establish fees to cover their costs. So whatever those costs are, you can recoup them, and we want to make it easy again for our localities to do that. One other issue that I'll just quickly address, there were questions that were raised over the last few weeks about how this process gets prioritized over others, and we included an amendment to very specifically address this concern, to say that cities and counties are authorized to set your own priorities for competing permits. So again, I don't want to dictate that. I think it's up to cities to decide that, but we simply want the cities and counties to make that decision.
So I really appreciate that, Assembly Member, and I know you're a local government guy yourself. I'm happy to support this bill. It's important to me that you continue dialogue, and I think some important issues were raised, but ultimately the goals that you're trying to reach here are very important for so much of what we're trying to do in the legislature right now. So I hope that you'll continue dialogue and keep working to make sure this is something that's fair and implementable on the ground in our cities.
Other questions? So we have Senator McGuire, Senator Gaines. Anybody else? Anthony? No? Okay. Senator McGuire, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Assembly Member. Always good to see you, sir. So support this. Just a couple of items I just wanted to bring forward and come from a county where we funded putting an electric car charging station or multiple car charging stations in every corner of the county, even in the most rural, so that you can travel what we call the electric car highway. And one of the biggest issues that we've had is on ADA. And particularly early on, we had to settle an issue with an individual, both on a cash settlement front and infrastructure fund, to be able to make sure that these car charging stations are ADA compliant if they're within a public space. I say that because I know that there's a process going through right now where regulations would be established, standards established, I should say, that would help with a template, if you will, related to ADA, and how that's going to roll into the legislation, because that is a concern for local government. Can you touch on that just a bit?
Certainly. So our bill does not address those issues at all. That would be a different bill. And you were alluding to the fact that the California Building Standards Commission is working on this, and I understand we'll be moving forward with proposals. The building industry is very involved in that, and I absolutely support those efforts, and I do believe and hope that there will be a good resolution of that. That being said, this bill does not impact those issues.
And I understand that piece, that it does not cover that area. At the same time, though, they're very much related, right? And this needs to become a template throughout the state, and frankly, the norm, right? And if we're putting this forward with cities, I don't know if it's going to be a trailer bill next year, if you will, following up on this. But if we are essentially going to be mandating an expedited process, making sure that we do it right, and not ending up in a situation like we did, where there were some mistakes made.
Absolutely, and I, for one, I'd be happy to work with you, and I know there are others here in this committee who are experts on ADA issues. Looking to Senator Roth, with whom we had a lengthy discussion in Senate Judiciary this morning. Happy to work with you on that. I think one of our supporters also has another point that he'd like to make.
Senator McGuire, it is our expectation, it's not a certainty, but it's our expectation that the Building Standards Commission will develop the rules relating to ADA prior to the effective date of the bill, in terms of the deadline by which the large cities have to come up with their ordinance. So while, again, we cannot guarantee it, that is our expectation, and the building industry as well as other stakeholders are actively involved in that process. and like you, we want to get that resolved.
No, I appreciate that. I know we want to do it right, and just to the chair, and just maybe a suggestion that we come back and visit this in the next calendar year, just as a follow-up and seeing where that's at. That would be fantastic. And the other two items is absolutely agree related to small cities and on the issue of cost recovery. And as you advance, just some thought on that one-size-fits-all approach, particularly on a small city and what that's going to take for a limited staff. And do appreciate your willingness to be able to work on the municipal side as well, and how you can include the utility director or at least an authorized representative in their approval. I'm not as concerned about that because I think that municipal does it best and know their stuff. And being able to work with a utility director on that, I think that would most likely help the NCPA cities and or Southern California. So that would be fantastic.
Great. Yes.
Senator Gaines.
Thank you, Assemblymember Chu. I appreciate you bringing this forward. I was in opposition coming into the meeting, but hearing your comments and some of the testimony, I think I'll just not vote at this point, but my hope would be that you could address some of the concerns. This ordinance issue doesn't have to be an ordinance. You know, if you can get it done without it being an ordinance, I think that would be more efficient at the local government level. The local control of the priority, I like, and thank you for including that. And then the utility capacity, I have concerns about how they fit into the picture so that you are properly planning. So I don't know to what degree those discussions are continuing, but I do know it's coming to the floor, and so I think at this point, maybe just hold off, and would love to see more information as we move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Any closing remarks?
No, it's been a long afternoon for all of you, so I respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it has. Thank you very much. I'm glad we're working on this. This is very important to do what we want to do in terms of electric vehicles. So we have a motion on this bill?
Yes.
Okay, you have a motion. Call the roll, please.
The motion is do pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Canella?
Aye.
Canella, aye. Allen?
Aye.
Allen, aye. Bates? Gaines? Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Leyva?
Aye.
Leyva, aye. McGuire?
Aye.
McGuire, aye. Mendoza? Roth?
Aye.
Roth, aye. Wachowski? Wachowski, aye.
Thank you.
So that's all, 8-0.
That's out on an 8-0 vote.
Thank you, Senators.
Thank you very much for your work on this. Thank you. Okay, we'll go back and open the roll for members who haven't voted on bills. So we're going to go through the bills in file order, and if you haven't voted, please stay and vote. So we'll start.
File item 2, AB 53 by Assemblymember Cristina Garcia. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 7-1. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen?
I'm sorry, which is this?
File item 2.
We're voting on the file.
Oh, aye.
Allen, aye. Mendoza? Wachowski?
Aye.
Wachowski, aye. So that's 9-1. I don't know if Mendoza is coming back or not.
Okay. Okay. That vote is 9-1. We will wait to see if Senator Mendoza comes back and votes. Okay. Thank you.
File item 3, AB 63 by Assemblymember Bonilla. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 8-0. Chair
Hold on. Why don't you call that one over again, because we got him here. Okay, he's here. We're calling Senator Mendoza. We just started. We did the first item, which you had not voted yet. And why don't we call that roll on that item first? So we.
Okay, that's on AB 53 by Assemblymember Cristina Garcia. Mendoza? Mendoza, aye.
Thank you.
So that is out 10-1.
That bill is out on a 10-1 vote. Thank you, Senator.
File item 3, AB 63 by Assemblymember Bonilla. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Current vote is 8-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen?
Aye.
Allen, aye. Mendoza? Mendoza, aye. Wachowski?
Aye.
Wachowski, aye.
Thank you.
That is out on 11-0 vote.
That is out on 11-0 vote. Next item.
File item 4, AB 157 by Assemblymember Levine. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Environmental Quality. The current vote is 9-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen? Aye. Allen, aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mendoza, aye. Wachowski? Aye. Wachowski, aye. That's 11-0.
That vote is out on an 11-0 vote.
File item 6, AB 270 by Assemblymember Nazarian. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 9-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen? Allen, aye. Mendoza? Mendoza, aye. 11-0.
That vote is out on an 11-0 vote.
File item 9, AB 516 by Assemblymember Mullen. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Public Safety. The current vote is 7-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen? Allen, aye. Gaines? Mendoza? Mendoza, aye. Wachowski? Wachowski, aye. That is out 10-0.
That is out a 10-0 vote.
File item 11, AB 744 by Assemblymember Chow. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Governance and Finance. The current vote is 5-4. Chair voting aye, Vice Chair voting no. Allen? Allen, aye. Mendoza? Mendoza, aye. So that bill is out 7-4.
That bill is out on a 7-4 vote.
File item 12, AB 828 by Assemblymember Lowe. The motion is do pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Rules. The current vote is 5-4. Chair voting no, Vice Chair voting aye. Galgiani? Wachowski? Aye. Wachowski, aye.
Galgiani, no.
Galgiani, no. So that's 6-5. That's out.
That vote is out on a 6-5 vote.
File item 14, AB 932 by Assemblymember Daley. The motion is do pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 8-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen? Allen, aye. Mendoza? Mendoza, aye. Wachowski? Aye. Wachowski, aye. 11-0, that's out.
That bill's out on an 11-0 vote. Please.
File item 15, AB 974.
Can we take the discussions outside, please? Thank you.
By Assemblymember Bloom, the motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Governance and Finance. The current vote is 5-1. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen? Aye. Allen, aye. Bates? Gaines? Mendoza? Aye. Mendoza, aye. Wachowski? Aye. Wachowski, aye.
Ted, you voted? No. Ted's a no vote. Gaines is no.
Gaines, no. So that's 8-2, that's out.
That bill's out on an 8-2 vote.
File item 16, AB 1178 by Assemblymember Shajian. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Judiciary. The current vote is 8-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Allen? Aye. Allen, aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mendoza, aye. Wachowski? Aye. Wachowski, aye. That's out 11-0.
11-0, that bill is out.
And the consent calendar, the current vote is 6-0. Allen? Aye. Allen, aye. Gaines?
Consent calendar.
Gaines, aye. Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Mendoza? Mendoza, aye. Wachowski? Wachowski, aye. That's out 11-0.
11-0, those bills are out.
That's it.
Ted Gaines, you want to? He wants 560.
We've already dispensed with it.
Oh, we've already dispensed with it. So, okay, thank you, everybody. Long meeting and very good work. We'll adjourn. Thank you.